tato jayamudirayet. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. The power in my community went out this morning, so I'm joining from my phone. So I just didn't know if you could hear me correctly. Yeah, I didn't want to back out at the last minute, so I just doing the best I can with technology available. So please bear with me in terms of the experience that I'm joining from my phone. We are reading from the seventh canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 9. And this is, I understand this is the text 24 that I heard from Mother Parijata told me it's text 24. So we'll read text 24. Just navigating on my sorry, just tells us how dependent we are on external things for even our basic functioning. The power went out and it just threw us all off. So any illusion that we are the controller gets dispelled. Text 24. Thus, I will try the same tune that our dear Taraka Prabhu uses, so it might be easier for everybody to chant. Tasmadamustanubhuta mahamashishogya ayushriyam vibhava maindriyamavirincyat nechamite vilulitanu ruvikramena kalatmanopanayamam nijabhrutyparsham. Tasmadamustanubhrutam aham ashishogya ayushriyam vaibhavam aindriyam avirinchat nechamite vilolitan urvikramena kalatmanopnayamam nijabhrutyparsham. Tasmadamustanubhrutam Ayuh Shriyam Vibhava Maindriyamavirincyat Nechamite Vilulitanu Ruvikramena Kalatmanopanayamam Nijabhrutya Pashwam. Devotees can chant.
Tasmad amush tanuvritam aham ashishogya ayu shriyam vibhavam indrat varinincyat nechyamite viluitan uruvikramena talatmanopanayamam nijabrit yaparshvam.
Tasmadamustanubhritam aham ashishogya ayushriyam vibhavam andriyam avirinchat nechamite vilulitan urvikramena kalat manopanaya mam nijabritya parshvam.
We will read the word for word translation. Tasmat, therefore, Amu, all those opulences. Tanubhratam, with reference to living entities possessing mature bodies. Aham, I, Ashishaha, Ashishagya, knowing well the results of such benedictions. Ashisha means benedictions or blessings. And Ayuhu, a long duration of life. Shriyam, material opulences. Vaibhavam, influence and glories. Vaibhavam also means opulence or power and all those things as well. So it means all those things. Aindriyam, all meant for sense gratification. Avirinchayat, beginning from Lord Brahma down to the small ant. So this Avirinchayat, Virinchi is the name of Brahma. So that's another, a lot of prayers you will see Shiva Virinchi Nutam. So the Lord is worshipped by Shiva and Virinchi. Virinchi is Brahma. Na, not. Ichhami, I want. Te, by you. Vilulitan, subject to be finished. Uru Vikramena, who are extremely powerful. Kala Atmana, as the master of the time factor. Upanaya is kindly take to, Mam, may. Nija Bhritya Parshvam, and the association of your faithful servant. Nija means yours or close, somebody's closed. Bhritya is servant, and Parshvam is associate. Your devotee, if that's what it means. So, translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. My dear Lord, now I have complete experience concerning the worldly opulence, mystic power, longevity, and other material pleasures enjoyed by all living entities, from Lord Brahma down to the ant. As powerful time, you destroy all of them. Therefore, because of my experience, I do not wish to possess them. My dear Lord, I request that you place me in touch with your pure devotees and let me serve him as a sincere servant. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. By studying Srimad Bhagavatam, every intelligent man can get experience like that of Prahlad Maharaj through the historical incidents mentioned in this great literature of spiritual knowledge. By following in the footsteps of Prahlad Maharaj, one should gain thorough experience that all material opulence is perishable at every moment. Even this body, for which we try to acquire so many sensual pleasures, may perish at any time. The soul, however, is eternal. Nahanyate hanyamane sharire. The soul is never vanquished, even when the body is destroyed. An intelligent man, therefore, should care for the happiness of the spirit soul, not for the body. Even if one receives a body with a long duration of life, like those of Lord Brahma and the other great demigods, it will also be destroyed, and therefore an intelligent man should be concerned with the imperishable spirit soul. To save oneself, one must take shelter of a pure devotee. Narottam Das Thakur therefore says, Chadiya Vaishnava Seva Nistarya Payache Keba. If one wants to save himself from material nature's onslaughts, which arise because of the material body, one must become Krishna conscious and try to fully understand Krishna. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 4:9, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatvataha. One should understand Krishna in truth, and this one can do only by serving a pure devotee. Thus, Prahlad Maharaj prays that Lord Narasimhadev place him in touch with the pure devotee and servant instead of awarding him material opulence. Every intelligent man within this material world must follow Prahlad Maharaj. Mahajano yena gathasa pantha. Prahlad Maharaj did not want to enjoy the estate left by his father. Rather, he wanted to become a servant of the Lord. The illusory human civilization that perpetually endeavors for happiness through material advancement is rejected by Prahlad Maharaj and those who strictly follow in his footsteps. There are different types of material opulence, technically known as bhukti, mukti, and siddhi. Bhukti refers to being situated in a very good position, like a position with the demigods and the higher planetary systems, where one can enjoy material sense gratification to the greatest extent. Mukti refers to being disgusted with material advancement and thus desiring to become one with the Supreme. Siddhi refers to executing a severe type of meditation like that of the yogis to attain 8 kinds of perfection, anima, lagima, mahima, etc. All who desire some material advancement through bhukti, mukti, or siddhi are punishable in due course of time, and they return to material activities. Prahlad Maharaj rejected all of them and simply wanted to engage as an apprentice under the guidance of a pure devotee. I'll read the translation again for context. Now, my dear Lord, now I have complete experience concerning the worldly opulence, mystic power, longevity, and other material pleasures enjoyed by all living entities, from Lord Brahma down to the ant. As powerful time, you destroy them all. Therefore, because of my experience, I do not wish to possess them. My dear Lord, I request you to place me in touch with your pure devotee and let me serve him as a sincere servant. So, again, these prayers by Prahlad Maharaj are so beautiful. They're prayers by Prahlad Maharaj in two sections of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Generally, devotees, when they speak about prayers of Prahlad Maharaj, they speak about the prayers in this ninth chapter. But the equally beautiful prayers by Prahlad Maharaj in the fifth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam as well, uh, in the 18th chapter, prayers by the residents of Harivarshva. So these are two places where Prahlad Maharaj's prayers are placed in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this particular prayer, Prahlad Maharaj is saying that he does not want the benedictions that typically most materialists pray for. They pray for all the things that are mentioned here specifically, or a opulence, mystic power, longevity, and other material pleasures. And so he says that these are all temporary, and and so I don't want them. You destroy them in due course anyway. So what is the point in asking for these things that get destroyed in due course? I wanted to focus on a couple of points in the purport that Srila Prabhupada gives. Very wonderful and direct purport. So the first point in the purport, in the very beginning, it's a very subtle point, but Srila Prabhupada writes, by studying Srimad Bhagavatam, every intelligent man can get experience like that of Prahlad Maharaj through the historical incidents mentioned in this great literature of spiritual knowledge. So the first point here is that Srila Prabhupada says, by studying Srimad Bhagavatam. So there's a difference between reading Srimad Bhagavatam and studying Srimad Bhagavatam. And so when I urge people to study Srila Prabhupada's books, I make it very clear that I'm saying we should study Srila Prabhupada books, not read them. Because you can read so many things and you retain some of it, you don't retain some of it. But when you scrutinizingly study, that means we actually go deeper. We try to understand and assimilate what Srila Prabhupada is saying in our lives. And that is what is required. So anybody can read anything. And of course, it's better to read than not read. But as practicing devotees, our intention should be to study Srila Prabhupada's books. Scrutinizingly study what Srila Prabhupada actually meant to say and understand it with our discrimination. Srila Prabhupada always wanted us to use our intelligence, not blindly follow or become fanatics. But the idea is you scrutinizingly study Srila Prabhupada's books, understand the context of what Srila Prabhupada is saying, and actually contemplate on how we can implement that in our lives and how other great devotees implemented that in their lives. So the Srila Prabhupada assimilates the purports of many great acharyas in his purports. So I've personally not read all the commentaries of Jiva Goswami, Pad, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, but I've talked to devotees, scholarly devotees who have, and they assure me that if you were to read those detailed commentaries of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Jiva Goswami and Sridhar Swami and other great commentators on Srimad Bhagavatam, he assures me that Srila Prabhupada's commentaries actually summarize all of that. So if you read Srila Prabhupada's commentaries, you get a gist of the commentaries by the previous acharyas in parampara. And Srila Prabhupada presents it in a way that is understandable for people in this day and age. Right? So Sridhar Swami wrote his commentaries 1,000 years back and so on. So, and the level of scholarship of Jiva Goswami, we may not exactly understand as is if you read the purports, because the level of understanding, basic understanding of various shastras is expected when you read the commentaries of Jiva Goswami. For instance, if you were to read the Shat Sandarbhas, the 6 Sandarbhas of Jiva Goswami, they are meant for, essentially they're meant as a theses that are supposed to be read by people who have great understanding of Shastra. So for instance, in the Jiva Goswami purports, he will mention that as mentioned in the purports of Sri Ramanujacharya in this section. And so he will quote the first few words and say dot dot dot. And this, therefore, if you have no understanding of that purport and that text, then that logic will not make any sense to us because we haven't read those books. So those books are written with that perspective that for scholars to understand the the scriptural basis of Krishna consciousness. So Krishna consciousness is not something that was whimsically and sentimentally put forth uh, recently. It's a very bona fide, as we know, very bona fide shastra. But then for those who are intellectually minded, Jiva Goswami writes these books so that you can actually understand the true shastric basis for all the points that we are making, as Srila Prabhupada makes in his purports and so on. So the point of studying is to that even if you don't have the ability to study all the commentaries by the prior acharyas, simply by studying Srila Prabhupada's books and studying the purports that Srila Prabhupada has given in the Srimad Bhagavatam purports, we get a thorough understanding of how all the various other commentaries are assimilated. And so we get a thorough understanding of the point that Srila Prabhupada is making. So that's the first point that I wanted to touch on. The key is to study Srila Prabhupada's books and not just read. And that's what Srila Prabhupada says here, that Srimad Bhagavatam, every intelligent man can get experience like that of Prahlad Maharaj. So we can get experience in many ways. Right? We can get experience by directly experiencing those things, or we can get the experience and learn from the experience of others. And so the wise people, the intelligent people, can learn from the experience of great personalities like Prahlad Maharaj. So Prahlad Maharaj says that the Prahlad Maharaj didn't have first-hand experience himself of his opulence being taken away. But he has the second-hand experience of seeing how his father was so extremely powerful and his opulences were taken away in an instant by Nrsingadev. So he says, yes, I have the experience. I don't have to personally try to become very opulent and then see that my opulence gets taken away. I don't need to do that. That is not something that I personally need to do. I don't have to personally become uh, extremely powerful and rich and so on, and then see all the things that I work for be taken away. I don't have to personally experience that. I can experience that through the experience of my father. And that's what happened. And that's what Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, that through the historical incidents mentioned in this great literature. So that's another point, right? These are not allegorical or other sorts of incidents that people have made up to give us lessons. These are actually historical incidents. Srila Prabhupada puts these specific words in the purport, and as we start studying them, we understand what Srila Prabhupada is saying. So it's not these words that just accidentally put here. They're not just words that Srila Prabhupada uses for just filling the page. These are very specific words that he's using for us to understand the details of what we have to understand. Like I said, the first part is studying Srimad Bhagavatam. The second word in the purport, by studying. Srila Prabhupada wants us to study Bhagavatam, not just read. And he speaks about the mindset that we have to understand these are historical incidents. And we can get experience like that of Prahlad Maharaj simply by studying Srimad Bhagavatam. And I won't be able to do this for every single sentence in the purport, but I'm just trying to show how by scrutinizingly studying the purport of Srila Prabhupada, we get so much more deeper meaning of what Srila Prabhupada is actually saying. That Srila Prabhupada says, again, he quotes from the Gita, the Nahanyate Hanyamane Sharire, from the second chapter of the Gita, that even if you receive body with long duration of life, like that of Brahma and other demigods, it will also be destroyed. Therefore, an intelligent man should be concerned with the perishable soul. And then the other point that I wanted to quickly touch on, Srila Prabhupada is making very emphatically, is that one should understand truth in Krishna, and this one can do only by serving a pure devotee. Srila Prabhupada emphasizes the point that there's only way that you can understand the truth about Krishna is by serving a pure devotee, by taking shelter of a pure devotee as accepting a spiritual master and following instructions. It's not a formality. It's not something that we do so that we can get a spiritual name and walk around with a spiritual name. That is the external part of it. The real part of it is actually surrendering to the instructions of the spiritual master and actually living our lives accordingly. And so Srila Prabhupada makes a point here that he says that I'm just trying to find the point, but he says one must, and he uses that word must. One must become a servant of a pure devotee and try to take and serve a pure devotee. He says that. So it's not an optional thing. It's not an optional thing. It's not something that is one of the limbs of bhakti that we can do if we want to and not do if it's not convenient. So the association of pure devotees and serving pure devotees is a essential, mandatory limb of bhakti. It's not an optional thing. It's not like, yes, you know what, I can just sit in the corner and chant Hare Krishna all by myself and become perfect. That is not what Srila Prabhupada says in any of his purports and anywhere else. So this association of devotees and chanting of the holy name in the association of devotees. Our movement is a Sankirtan movement. Right? The Hare Krishna movement is also called the Sankirtan movement. Sankirtan literally means together kirtan. Our movement is not called the Japa movement, where you can just sit in the corner all by yourself and chant Hare Krishna. Although Hare Krishna chanting is the most important limb of our practice, but our movement is called the Sankirtan movement. So without the association of devotees and doing kirtan in the association of devotees, like we're doing now, we're all gathered together to glorify Lord Sri Krishna. This is Sankirtan. This is an essential limb of our spiritual practice. So without the association of devotees, trying to become perfected in Krishna consciousness all by ourselves is not possible. It will not sustain. It will not work. So the last point I wanted to make was really what Srila Prahlad Maharaj is asking for. He says, I do not wish to possess any of these opulences. My dear Lord, I request you to place me in touch with your pure devotee and let me serve him as a sincere servant. And you will see this in the prayers of several great personalities, where when the Lord asked them for a benediction, they asked for pure devotional service and the association of devotees. So this is not something that you will find only in the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj. If you read the prayers of Dhruva Maharaj, if you read the prayers of other great personalities in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and when they're asked for a benediction, it is very common for them to say, please give me pure devotional service to you, and please give me association of devotees. So this sadhu sangha is not something that is something that we should take cheaply. And sometimes when we are already in the association of devotees and we are in a spiritual society, in a spiritual community, we sometimes take it lightly. That yes, the devotees are always going to be there, whether I make an effort to associate with them or not. They don't associate today; they'll be around tomorrow as well. But that can be our biggest mistake in terms of understanding the prioritization of how we should focus our spiritual life. So Rupa Goswami Pad speaks about this in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu as well. And he speaks about the progression in bhakti. And all of you know this progression. That he speaks about Adav Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sango, Bhajana Kriya, Anata Nivritti Syat. And so he talks about this progression. And starts with Adav Shraddha, starts with some faith. Right? And so I will not speak on the faith topic because that itself is a whole tangent. But anything we do has to start with some faith. Otherwise, we can't even get out of bed if there is no faith. In the fact that we are ready to get on the road and drive, we have faith that the person on the next lane is not going to randomly swerve into us and crash into us. So we confidently drive because we have confidence that there won't be a big pothole in the middle of the road and we won't fall into that. So we have we trust things around us, right? So we have some faith. So similarly, Krishna consciousness begins with some faith. But then the immediate thing after that is sadhu sangha. So the association of devotees. When we have some faith, then we have come in the association of devotees. But these are not, these are progressively built on, right? So it doesn't mean that once we come in the association of devotees, we can stop having faith. So whatever we have in the first step continues in the next step and it builds on it. It's like a foundation. Each step is the foundation for the next step. And it continues. So Shraddha gives us the opportunity to have sadhu sangha. And when we are in sadhu sangha, then we can start the process of anartha nivritti, or slowly eliminating all the undesirable desires and actions and thoughts from our consciousness and our existence. So that is anartha nivritti. That happens. And so when you have sadhu sangha, you have bhajana kriya, and bhajana kriya leads to anartha nivritti. But you cannot do anartha nivritti if you don't have sadhu sangha. So everything kind of builds on it. So when you're doing anartha nivritti, automatically sadhu sangha is there. When you're doing bhajana kriya, like this is bhajana kriya, together reading Srimad Bhagavatam and discussing points from Bhagavatam is bhajana kriya. That's bhajana kriya will only happen with the sadhu sangha. So it builds on the other points. It's one should not think that okay, I'm at this point of ruchi or asakti, so I don't need sadhu sangha. Because if sadhu sangha goes away, then ruchi and asakti also goes away. These are all progressively built on the prior step. It's like if you're making a building, you build the first floor and you build the second floor and you build the third floor. You cannot take away the first three floors, and the third floor is not going to float in air. You can only build the fourth floor and the fifth floor on top of these floors that you already have. That's a simple analogy that I'm giving you. So the prior steps in this progression have to remain and have to continue to be prioritized. If suddenly the second floor gets weakened, then the whole building will collapse. The floors above that will collapse. So similarly, if we don't prioritize sadhu sangha and allow anarthas to creep in, even after you're at some stage, a future stage, then our whole progression and ruchi and prema all get disturbed. So re-emphasizing this point of sadhu sangha, that and again, gurus are of three categories, right? So you have mainly two categories, but we talk about diksha guru and the shiksha guru. Um, so all these have to be prioritized when we practice Krishna consciousness, and that's the basic point that Srila Prabhupada is making in the purport. And Srila Prahlad Maharaj is saying in this verse that I don't want any of these opulences because I've seen my father pursue these things his whole life. And what happened? He was completely bewildered. He never was able to actually fully enjoy these opulences because he was always in anxiety, not being able to control me. And finally, he was destroyed. So I have full experience that this is not the direction I want to head. The direction I want to head is to become your devotee, and that's what I want to do. So those are some of the points from the purport. And just on cue, the lights came on here. So, so the it kind of reaffirms that what I'm saying is actually correct. So thank you for allowing me to share some of my thoughts on this particular prayer. Uh, Hare Krishna. Any devotees have any other points they would like to make, or any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna. I have comments. I want to thank you for a very nice class, as always. And I want to confirm your statement. You spoke about studying Srila Prabhupada's books scrutinizingly. And this is a point which Srila Prabhupada himself stressed very often. While you were speaking, I was curious. I just did a quick search in the database, and I found that Srila Prabhupada talks about scrutinizingly studying the books over 100 times throughout his books and lectures, especially in his lectures. And he talks about the result of scrutinizing study, that he offers assurances that by studying scrutinizingly, the result is a very solid understanding of Krishna consciousness. I can give you a few examples. Early on, 1966 in New York, Srila Prabhupada was speaking on Bhagavad Gita, and he said, in order to drive away, dissipate all your doubtful ideas, the Shastras, the scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam are there. And if we make a scrutinizing study of these two books, we can understand the Krishna science very nicely, and our progress in the matter of Krishna consciousness will be definite. He stresses this over and over again, scrutinizing study. Narada Bhakti Sutra makes some mention. One should not unnecessarily divert his attention by partially studying many books so as to appear very learned. This is from a list of do's and do nots, fundamental principles for Vaishnavas. For devotional service, it is sufficient to scrutinizingly study books like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Rajavidya, Srila Prabhupada writes, Bhagavad Gita is the science of Krishna, and if we study it scrutinizingly, all of our argument, sense, and philosophical knowledge, we will come to know that science. There are many similar quotes. Srila Prabhupada repeats this idea of studying scrutinizingly, and as opposed to just reading many books. One may get a general broad understanding of the content of those books, but diving deeply is the process, because the subject matter is deep. You can get a cursory understanding of the philosophy, but to really derive the greatest benefit, you have to dive deeply. And what you find is that there are many subtle nuances to the understanding. There are different platforms of understanding in any given sentence, and sentences combine in ways that create new levels of understanding. A single sentence may express one idea or multiple ideas, but those ideas will be dependent clauses that form part of a greater understanding in the paragraph, or a combination of sentences. And I'm speaking from my own realization, having I'm doing some deep study of some of Srila Prabhupada's lectures. Actually, particularly, I'm focusing right now on Srila Prabhupada's lectures on these very chapters. The ninth chapter of seventh canto, chapter 9. Is that what I mean to say? Anyway, the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, on two separate occasions, did a series of lectures on the entire set of prayers. And so I've been doing an in-depth study of that, and looking at the ways in which Srila Prabhupada conveys ideas, and his extraordinary genius in the way that he weaves his words into ideas, and builds upon different levels of understanding. And you can dive very deeply into the meaning of the things that he's saying, and gradually you discover more and more meaning that is hidden in these words. Krishna gradually reveals himself to greater and greater extents. So you can dive very, very deeply, and there actually is no limit to the extent to which you can dive deeply into the understanding of a text like Srimad Bhagavatam, because Krishna is unlimited. His glories are unlimited, and they are all there. They will all be revealed gradually if you apply yourself um, uh, very diligently to the matter of studying in a scrutinizing way. You can reread the same paragraph again and again and again, and each time you can derive newer and newer meaning from it. It will never get old. There is always something new to understand. So scrutinizing study is the process, as Srila Prabhupada has explained so many times, that you must study scrutinizingly, not just once. And he stressed this point of not studying many books necessarily. Um, that's less important than to thoroughly study just a few books. So he stressed particularly Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Nectar Devotion. Those books primarily. Study those, learn those. Other books, there are so many books. There's a lot of books. Vaishnavas have produced so many wonderful books. They are absolutely wonderful. And one of the greatest lamentations I have in my life is that my life is too short to be able to read all those books. I want to hear all these wonderful messages from so many great acharyas, and there's just no time in life. But for success in the cultivation of Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada explains that what is required is scrutinizingly studying just the primary literatures, and not to spread your consciousness across a whole bunch of books without being able to dive deeply into them. Um, he explains that just studying a few books deeply is sufficient. You don't have to do more than that. Um, your point about Srila Prabhupada's purports containing the commentaries of the other acharyas is a great point. I have tested this myself, and in fact, I do every day before class. I review the day's verse before posting it in the chat. Um, I divide up the purport into sections that will fit in the chat, and I review all of what Srila Prabhupada has written. And I also look at the commentary of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and I compare that to what Srila Prabhupada has written. And every single day, I find that every single point made by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is in Srila Prabhupada's purport. It's always there. I have watched Srila Prabhupada dictate Srimad Bhagavatam night after night after night for I don't know, a year. It was my job to guard Srila Prabhupada's room at night, and I was usually outside the room, but depending upon where he was, sometimes I could actually see him. I could usually hear him, even though I was outside his door. But I'm familiar with the process. I would help Hari Sari set up Srila Prabhupada's desk for Srila Prabhupada's work each night. And there were, so there were certain things that had to be present. Srila Prabhupada had a very systematic way of doing everything. He formed habits in order to hone the efficiency of everything that he did. So on his desk, there were many items that were standardly present on his desk, no matter where he was. Hari Sari knew exactly what was to be present on his desk, and each of those items had to be in precisely the same place, so that Srila Prabhupada never had to look for something or try to figure out where it was. He always knew exactly where to reach for anything that he needed at any given moment. And if anything was ever out of place, he would say something. It was the responsibility of certain devotees to clean Srila Prabhupada's room every morning. And this took place while Srila Prabhupada was on his morning walk, so that he would not be disturbed. So the devotees had to work very quickly. Every single surface of the entire room had to be cleaned very carefully. Every item had to be picked up and carefully cleaned. All of the items on Srila Prabhupada's desk were picked up and cleaned. The desk was cleaned, and then they had to be put back in precisely the same location. And if something was out of place, Srila Prabhupada would notice it and say something. Anyway, at night, Srila Prabhupada's dictaphone will be placed on his desk, along with the various books that Srila Prabhupada would reference. And he referenced the commentaries of all the great acharyas. He had some very special volumes. They were huge, huge books, very thick volumes. And I mean, like 5 inches thick, if you can imagine such a book, because and it would be Srimad Bhagavatam, but it would combine the commentary of maybe 3 or more different acharyas. So we had these very large volumes that he would reference. And when he dictated his purports, before dictating, he carefully read the commentaries of each of the different acharyas, and then he incorporated all of that into his purport. That was his standard procedure. And that should not be a surprise. That should be expected, because that's what an acharya does. That's what a guru does. He repeats perfectly what he has heard from the previous acharyas. That's his job. Not that he presents something new or manufactures something, but he takes what was given by the previous acharyas, and very carefully, without adding or subtracting, without changing anything, he delivers that same message intact, sometimes changing the words, sometimes in a different language, making it more accessible by using modern terminology, incorporating examples that are understandable to people in the present context. So always working to make the subject matter more accessible, but without ever actually changing the substance, never adding, never subtracting, always delivering the message intact. So anyway, it's absolutely true. As Ananda Vilas Prabhu has explained, that simply by reading Srila Prabhupada's purports, you automatically get the commentary of the previous acharyas. Just as one would expect. That's the process of parampara. That's how it works. And because it's done that way, therefore it has the potency. The message is coming originally from Krishna himself, and it is absolutely magical. And as long as the message remains unchanged, it retains the original potency. It will have a powerful effect. So anyway, that's what I have to say on that. Thank you again for your wonderful class, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for your comments. Any other questions anybody has, or we can wrap? Okay, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
I just want to thank Tarika Prabhu for his thorough explanations and always bringing it back to Prabhupada and Prabhupada's purports. And it's a wonderful addition every day. Thank you so much, both of you. Wonderful class. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.